Upon first glance, this looks to be an ordinary run-of-the-mill business class PC from likes of Dell from around a decade ago. But this isn't just any business grade PC that was retired and pressed back into service by a new owner, aka me, because this is the same Dell Optiplex 7010 that was featured in a video of mine many years ago, where I performed some upgrades and customizations to it to suit my needs. Now, coming over to the rear of the desktop, there is nothing too terribly interesting until we direct our attention to the bottom, I guess, quarter of the case, where we have an external discrete graphics card, FireWire ports, and a SCSI card. I do know that it can unofficially support a maximum of 32 gigabytes of RAM. Currently, I kind of have some mismatched RAM modules in here, equaling a total of 24 gigabytes, although I would like to max that out. Eagle-eyed viewers probably notice the abundance of what appear to be hard drives in this machine, and you would most assuredly be correct in your assumptions that this is not a factory configuration. Storage is something of a premium and something I can never have enough of. I ended up being able to take advantage of this bracket here, which was unused from the factory. Just kind of hangs down here, and it just so happened to work in such a way as to where this hard drive, a 3.5-inch hard drive, can slide in here, and I just stuck a screw in to hold that in place. And what I ended up doing is being able to extend the SATA power connection, which would normally go to a second optical drive over here, through some very judicious use of heat shrink tubing, and I was able to extend that connector down, thus bridging the gap, running power to this third hard drive, and also an additional SATA connection, which goes to the fourth SATA connection on the motherboard. I've also recently upgraded the graphics card in this machine to something that is arguably obsolete these days for most intents and purposes and people, but in my particular usage scenario, anything was better than the old Nvidia GT710 that this thing was running. This Nvidia Quattro K2200 is most certainly an upgrade, even if just by a little bit, but I digress. That's not what we're here for in this video. No, what we're definitely here for, if we go ahead and pry these cables out of the way, is the underabundance of SATA ports for people such as myself that really have a thing for going all out when it comes to hard drives and storage. This machine only has 4 SATA connections on its motherboard, and all 4 of those connections are currently being occupied and used by the 2 hard drives down here, the hard drive up here, and lastly my optical drive. So what is a person such as myself supposed to do that wants to add perhaps a 4th or maybe even a 5th, if you're really feeling lucky, hard drive to this business class PC? And I could just hear everybody in the comments right now collectively suggesting to remove the optical drive and rob its SATA power and data connection for the 4th and final hard drive. But if you've watched this channel for any length of time, obsolete technology is most certainly a mainstay of my daily life, and I still use CDs and DVDs almost every day. Still rip CDs, burn CDs, DVDs, so that is certainly out of the question. Because I bought not 1 but 2 of these HP 1 terabyte 7200 2.5-inch SATA hard drives. Yes, I know they're not SSDs, but for my intents and purposes, it's more cost effective to just use a mechanical spinning hard drive, even at the expense of speed, for what I'm doing with it, archiving large chunks of data in the form of video and audio files. Now, the second hard drive off camera is the same as this one, so I have a total of 2 of these. It was a package deal, and this wasn't even intended to be used on my Dell Optiplex 7010. I actually had hopes of using one of those 2 hard drives to upgrade the auxiliary hard drive on my Dell Precision M6400, which I'm using as a secondary video transfer PC. The only trouble is, well, take a look at this 2.5-inch hard drive, and now take a look at this 2.5-inch SSD, but it's the same thing as a hard drive. Notice a size difference? Bigger is not always better, and that is the case here, because this 2.5-inch hard drive, little did I know when I was purchasing it, that there's actually 3 variations of 2.5-inch hard drive thicknesses or sizes, and so that's what led me down this bit of a rabbit hole right now of adapting and trying to overcome this limitation and using these hard drives at least one, preferably two, now in my main desktop system. Because I have them, I don't want them to go to waste. But again, it bears repeating that we are currently maxed out when it comes to SATA ports on our motherboard. Well, Amazon to the rescue, because for around $15 I was able to obtain this PCI-E SATA expansion card. And wouldn't you know it, hiding below the regular PCI card slot, which houses my Adaptec 2940AU, is a PCI 16 wired as an X4 expansion card slot. And right there, plain as day, PCIe X1. So we should have no issues whatsoever with connecting this up to that card slot, hopefully. Had to hunt around for a spare SATA cable. That's where it comes in handy, having derelict computers sitting around with spare parts that you could rob off of them at any given moment. Now I just need to connect up the SATA cable, find a way to get power to the hard drive, and I should hopefully be in business. Well, the plot most definitely thickens as we forge ahead into uncharted territory. I don't have any additional power connections currently coming out of my power supply. And the SATA splitter cable that I ordered, which was supposed to be delivered today alongside that PCI expansion card, has been delayed. So whatever is a person supposed to do? Well, I've actually been experimenting off camera before deciding to install these hard drives internally with this rinky-dink USB 3.0, that might as well be USB 2.0 speed capable SATA adapter. This thing is really quite disappointing in terms of performance, and it's really not going to be feasible to use this thing. What I could really do now to cobble things together, just for the time being, and in the interim while I wait for that SATA splitter, is to run this thing into my CPU for now, just to supply power to the hard drive. Again, only temporarily for testing purposes. And now for the fun, and by fun I mean incredibly tedious task and game of playing which cable goes to which port. I have to connect everything back up to my CPU. I'll go ahead and flip that power switch on for the hard drive. Yep, it just spun up. And now for the main test, powering on the desktop and seeing what happens. Well, Houston, we have liftoff after an obscenely long amount of time booting up for the first time, because I'm still running Windows 10 on a mechanical hard drive. Well, that's mildly concerning, going off of what Crystal Disk Info is presently reporting right now. Now, we don't have any of the uncorrectable sector count or read-write errors, which pretty much signal the end of the line for a mechanical hard drive, but under the reallocated sectors count, and looking at the raw value, we have one reallocated sector, which is enough to trigger the caution health status symbol in Crystal Disk Info. And this probably has something to do with the obscene amount of power on hours. In stark contrast to the power on count, the hard drive was only powered on a total of 30 times. It has amassed a total of 65,397 hours. I'm wondering if I should take my chances with these two hard drives. I've written and read quite a bit of data to the OneDrive so far to test it, and that count has not increased. Obviously, though, if these were priceless family pictures, documents, things like that, I certainly wouldn't be trusting them to used hard drives. That Crystal Disk Info has cause enough to give a caution warning in yellow, but I think I'm going to take my chances. And if anybody would happen to have any more information on that matter, I would certainly welcome hearing from you in the comments, because I'm no hard drive expert. And I just realized something that's a very pleasant surprise. The transfer mode is being reported as SATA 600. And that is a major milestone and a reason for this whole little endeavor, because this adapter right here, when connected to that hard drive, was reporting that the hard drive supported SATA 600 but was only operating at SATA 300, and data transfer speeds, especially for large video files, were absolutely abysmal. I'm talking around 30 to 40 at the absolute max, and on a good day, megabytes per second, which is just unacceptable. That's a massive improvement in speed. I should have probably got it on camera, but you know, hindsight's always 20/20. But I can assure you that using that USB adapter with this same hard drive Again, I was barely able to achieve 40 megabytes per second. Now the next obstacle is to figure out how I'm going to mount this thing inside the case. Well, that'll definitely work. There's just enough room above the optical drive to slip it in. In fact, there might even just be enough room to slip the second 2.5-inch drive on the left side, and that works actually very well. Have that out of the way, and it's still able to get some airflow through there. For the time being, until I get that SATA splitter, I'm just going to run that cable into the case and then install the cover. Fast forwarding with some movie magic to the next day, and I have ended up with my SATA power splitter kit. And they gave you 2 SATA data cables, one of which is just a regular straight kind, and then the second one is a right angle. And there's 2 of these different style power connectors. The one I need, of course, is the newer style, not this older, I'm assuming that's a Molex connector. But what I end up needing is a splitter that takes 1 SATA power input and splits it out to 3. But the one that I have here only splits it out to 2. What I'm going to do is sacrifice this one right over here and use this to connect to this and end up with a 3-way splitter. Well, I don't see 6-foot flames coming out of the computer, nor did I hear any loud bangs or pops, and it took quite a bit of finagling to get both of those drives in this very small space. Had to get this one in first because the latch is in the way. So I had that in, and then was just barely able to maneuver this one in around these wires, and now they both fit like a glove, perfect size in there. I got the 2 drives here. One I've already managed to fill up with a bunch of video transfers, and then the second one. The one drive is showing a count of 2 in the raw value, and then the second one that I've been using so far, that's 3/4 of the weight filled up, is showing 1 reallocated sector. I'm probably playing with fire, as I'm sure I'm going to hear quite a bit of flack in the comments about doing this, so if anybody would have any suggestions as to decent quality hard drive stress test software, or any advice with regard to the reallocated sector count being in the single digits, I would also welcome hearing from you in the comments below. But for the time being, given how little I spent on this little endeavor, I am quite satisfied. Now I've really expanded upon the storage capabilities of my machine, and this was a proof of concept of sorts. Now I can go ahead and spend the big bucks on good quality, brand new hard drives if I so desire. In fact, what I could always do is end up buying a better SATA to PCI adapter, one that gives you 4 SATA ports, and I can install an additional 2 internal hard drives.